Have you ever felt the weight of prejudice pressing down on you, suffocating your potential before you even had a chance to prove yourself? Have you ever been judged not by the content of your character or the depth of your abilities, but by the color of your skin or the circumstances of your birth? This is the story of Ava Carter, a young woman who faced that very injustice head-on, in the hallowed halls of a prestigious institution that was supposed to represent opportunity, but often felt more like a gilded cage built on exclusion. Her journey is a testament to the power of talent to transcend barriers and the quiet strength it takes to stand tall in the face of blatant discrimination. Prepare to witness how a single act of forced performance can unravel years of ingrained bias and leave even the most prejudiced hearts utterly speechless. The fluorescent lights in the music classroom of Westwood Academy emitted a low, persistent hum, a monotonous drone that seemed to underscore the stifling atmosphere of the room. The air was thick with the scent of old wood from the rows of empty instrument cases lining the walls, mingled with the faint, lingering aroma of floor polish and the collective anxiety of teenagers on the cusp of being dismissed for the day. Westwood Academy, with its imposing brick buildings and manicured lawns, was an institution steeped in tradition, a place where generations of privilege had walked its polished corridors. Its reputation for academic excellence was only matched by its history of exclusivity, a carefully guarded legacy that often left those from less fortunate backgrounds feeling like intruders in a world not meant for them. Among the sea of predominantly white faces sat Ava Carter, a 16-year-old black girl whose presence in this elite environment was a direct result of her mother's unwavering determination. Her mother, Sarah, had worked tirelessly, scrubbing floors and waitressing long hours, sacrificing her own dreams so that Ava might have a chance at a better future. The scholarship Ava had earned was Sarah's hard-won victory, a symbol of hope and a testament to the belief that talent, regardless of its origin, deserved to be nurtured. Yet, for Ava, the reality of Westwood was often a stark contrast to the promise it held. She navigated its hallowed halls with a constant awareness of being different, an outsider in a world that seemed to whisper its disapproval with every sideways glance and hushed conversation. The whispers followed her like shadows, clinging to her as she moved through the crowded hallways and sat in the echoing classrooms. Her peers, many of whom had known each other since kindergarten, often regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Behind carefully constructed smiles and polite nods, Ava could sense their unspoken questions, their subtle judgments about her clothes, her hair, the very fact that she was there on a scholarship while they paid exorbitant tuition fees. It was a constant, low-level hum of scrutiny that wore her down, making her feel perpetually on guard. The teachers, too, often contributed to this feeling of isolation, albeit in more subtle ways. While most were outwardly professional, there were moments, fleeting but impactful, when Ava felt their doubt, their unspoken assumption that she was somehow less capable, less deserving. They rarely called on her in class, their eyes seeming to skim over her as they sought out the eager hands of her more privileged classmates. Her insightful comments were sometimes dismissed with a curt nod, while similar contributions from others were met with enthusiastic praise. It was a pattern, a subtle undermining of her confidence that made her feel invisible, a ghost in a world that refused to fully acknowledge her presence. Mr. Thompson, the school's long-tenured and widely revered music instructor, was a prime example of this subtle, yet deeply damaging bias. A man of rigid principles and old-fashioned sensibilities, he held a firm belief in the inherent superiority of certain students, a belief often reflected in his teaching methods and his interactions with the class. With his stern face and perpetually furrowed brow, He exuded an air of authority that bordered on intimidation. He had been at Westwood for over 2 decades, his reputation built on the success of his select group of talented and mostly white students who consistently excelled in regional and national music competitions. Mr. Thompson rarely acknowledged Ava in his class. He would look right through her when asking questions, his gaze sweeping over her as if she were part of the furniture. When she did manage to offer a contribution to a discussion, he would often dismiss it with a vague, non-committal response, quickly moving on to another student's opinion. He had a way of subtly undermining her confidence, of making her feel as though her thoughts and ideas were simply not worthy of his attention. It was a constant, quiet erosion of her self-belief, a feeling that no matter how hard she tried, she would never truly measure up in his eyes. Today, however, Mr. Thompson had something different in mind. As the final minutes of the lesson ticked away, the usual hum of restless energy that preceded the bell began to fill the room. Students shuffled their papers, packed their bags, their minds already drifting towards the freedom of the afternoon. But Mr. Thompson remained standing at the front of the classroom, his gaze fixed on Ava. A strange, almost predatory glint flickered in his eyes, a subtle shift in his usual demeanor that sent a ripple of unease through her. He cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the rising murmur of the students like a sharp knife. "Carter," he said, his voice carrying a distinct edge of condescension, a tone that always made Ava's stomach clench. All conversation in the room ceased. Every head turned towards her. She could feel the weight of their collective gaze, a mixture of curiosity, anticipation, and perhaps even a hint of malicious glee from those who had witnessed his dismissive treatment of her in the past. "Since you seem so disengaged today," he continued, a thin smile playing on his lips, a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes, "why don't you show us what you can do? Come up here and play something for us on the piano." Ava stiffened in her seat. A wave of heat flushed through her cheeks. She knew exactly what this was. It wasn't a genuine invitation, an opportunity for her to showcase her musical abilities. It was a calculated move, a deliberate attempt to humiliate her in front of the entire class. He had likely noticed her quiet demeanor, perhaps misinterpreting it as a lack of interest or ability. He probably assumed she was just another scholarship kid out of her depth, a charity case who didn't truly belong at Westwood. A ripple of suppressed laughter ran through the class. Ava could feel their eyes on her, their silent expectation that she would stumble, that she would prove Mr. Thompson's low opinion of her correct. They didn't know about the hours she had spent practicing, the dedication she had poured into mastering the intricate melodies and complex harmonies that filled her head. They didn't know about her grandmother, Mama Lena, who had been a renowned jazz pianist in the vibrant music scene of New Orleans, and who had passed down her passion and her skill to Ava. Mama Lena had been her first and most influential teacher, her calloused fingers guiding Ava's small hands across the worn ivory keys of her old upright piano. She had taught Ava not just the notes on the page, but the soul of the music, the stories hidden within the rhythms and melodies. She had filled Ava's childhood with the sounds of jazz, blues, and gospel, instilling in her a deep appreciation for the power of music to express the full spectrum of human emotion. Swallowing the rising tide of anger and humiliation, Ava slowly rose from her chair. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but she forced herself to maintain an unwavering posture, refusing to give Mr. Thompson the satisfaction of seeing her discomfort. With deliberate steps, she walked towards the grand piano that stood gleaming in the corner of the room, a majestic instrument that usually remained untouched by the students, reserved for Mr. Thompson's own occasional performances and the select few he deemed worthy. As she reached the piano, her fingers lightly brushed the smooth, cool surface of the keys. It was a familiar sensation, a comforting touch that momentarily calmed the storm raging inside her. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves and focus on the music that was already forming in her mind. A beat of silence fell over the room, a tense, expectant hush. All eyes were on her, waiting to see if she would falter, waiting to witness the spectacle of her supposed inadequacy. But in that moment, standing before the grand piano, Ava knew that she wouldn't just play. She would make them listen. She would make them see. She would make them understand. Could a forced performance intended to belittle someone transform into an undeniable display of brilliance, silencing prejudice with the sheer power of music? Ava took a slow, deliberate breath, her gaze sweeping across the expectant faces in the room before settling on the polished keys beneath her fingers. Instead of the hesitant, clumsy scale or the simple, beginner's piece that Mr. Thompson and the rest of the class undoubtedly anticipated, she launched into a breathtaking rendition of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. The opening clarinet glissando soared through the room, a soulful wail that immediately captured the attention of everyone present. It was a bold choice, a complex and demanding piece that required not only technical mastery, but also a deep understanding of its emotional nuances. Her fingers danced across the ivory keys with an effortless grace that belied her 16 years. Each note was precise, yet imbued with a raw, visceral emotion that resonated deep within the listeners. The intricate melodies flowed one into another, a masterful blend of classical structure and the improvisational spirit of jazz. The music swelled and ebbed like the tide, painting vivid pictures in the air, the bustling streets of a vibrant city, the quiet solitude of a moonlit night, the soaring hope of dreams taking flight. The room fell into a profound silence, broken only by the rich, resonant tones of the grand piano. Students who had been stifling yawns or surreptitiously checking their phones were now sitting upright, their eyes wide with astonishment. Even those who had initially chuckled at Mr. Thompson's thinly veiled attempt to humiliate Ava were now completely captivated, their preconceived notions dissolving with each passing measure. They had expected awkwardness, a fumbling display of incompetence. What they were witnessing instead was a revelation, a breathtaking exhibition of talent that defied their assumptions. Mr. Thompson's smug expression, the one he had worn as he issued his condescending challenge, began to crumble. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a flicker of disbelief crossing his stern features. This was not the outcome he had envisioned. He had intended to expose Ava's supposed lack of musical ability, to reinforce his prejudiced view of her. Instead, she was dismantling his carefully constructed biases note by glorious note. His hands, which had been resting confidently on his desk, now clenched into fists, his knuckles turning white. Ava poured her heart and soul into the performance, channeling the years of practice, the lessons learned from her grandmother, the quiet determination that had always burned within her. She wasn't just playing the notes. She was telling a story, her story, a story of resilience, of passion, of the unwavering belief in her own worth despite the obstacles she faced. The music transcended the confines of the classroom, filling the space with a power that was both electrifying and deeply moving. When Ava finally struck the resounding final chord, a profound stillness hung in the air. It was as if time itself had stopped, everyone present held captive by the lingering echoes of the music. Then, a single clap broke the silence. It came from the back of the classroom, From James, the quiet student who usually sat hunched over his books and rarely spoke. His solitary act seemed to break the spell. Hesitantly at first, then with growing enthusiasm, others began to applaud. Soon, the entire room was filled with the sound of clapping hands, some even whistling and cheering, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe and newfound respect. Mr. Thompson, however, remained frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and barely concealed fury. His authority had been challenged, not by words, but by an undeniable display of talent that he could not ignore. His carefully cultivated image of the all-knowing, infallible music instructor had been shattered in a matter of minutes. "Enough!" he barked, his voice sharp and strained, cutting through the applause like a whip. "That was unexpected, but playing piano like that won't get you far here." His words, intended to diminish Ava's achievement, rang hollow in the face of what everyone had just witnessed. Ava locked eyes with Mr. Thompson, her own gaze steady and unwavering. The fear and humiliation she had felt moments before had been replaced by a quiet confidence, a sense of empowerment that radiated from her. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm and measured, yet it carried a firm resolve that commanded attention. "Funny," she said, her words clear and distinct, reaching every corner of the room. "Because you just spent the last few weeks telling us about the brilliance of Gershwin. I thought you'd appreciate the interpretation." A collective gasp rippled through the class. Ava's words hung in the air, a direct and pointed rebuttal to Mr. Thompson's dismissive remark. She had not only demonstrated her exceptional talent, but had also cleverly exposed his hypocrisy. He had lauded the genius of Gershwin, a composer who blended classical and jazz elements in a way that was groundbreaking for his time, yet he was attempting to belittle Ava's similar fusion of styles. Mr. Thompson's face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He seemed momentarily stunned by Ava's unexpected defiance. The students, who had been silently observing the exchange, began to murmur amongst themselves, their initial awe now tinged with a sense of excitement and anticipation. They were witnessing something truly remarkable, a student standing up to a teacher who was known for his rigid and often unfair treatment. "Carter, that was inappropriate," Mr. Thompson finally sputtered, his voice trembling slightly with anger. "You were asked to play something, not to offer a sarcastic commentary." Ava tilted her head slightly, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Was it sarcastic, sir? Or was it simply an observation?" Her calm demeanor only seemed to further infuriate Mr. Thompson, who was clearly losing control of the situation. He was used to being the one in charge, the one who dictated the terms of engagement. Now the tables had turned, and he was on the defensive. James, the quiet student who had initiated the applause, spoke up again, his voice surprisingly clear and strong. "Sir, I thought her playing was amazing. Gershwin would have loved it." Several other students nodded in agreement, their murmurs growing louder and more confident. The atmosphere in the room had shifted. The power dynamic had subtly changed. Mr. Thompson's authority, which had once seemed absolute, was now visibly weakened. A wave of murmurs spread through the class, a low hum of agreement and admiration for Ava's courage and talent. She had not only silenced Mr. Thompson with her music, but had also found her voice, using it to challenge his prejudice and expose his hypocrisy. In that moment, Ava was no longer the invisible outsider. She had become a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt underestimated or marginalized. The students who had once whispered behind her back were now looking at her with newfound respect. The teachers who had subtly doubted her potential might now have reason to reconsider their assumptions. The silence that followed Ava's retort was not one of fear or intimidation, but one of contemplation, a recognition of the profound shift that had just occurred in the stuffy music classroom of Westwood Academy. The echoes of Rhapsody in Blue still lingered in the air, a powerful reminder that true talent cannot be suppressed, and that even in the most prejudiced environments, brilliance will always find a way to shine through. The next day at Westwood Academy felt different for Ava. As she walked through the hallways, she noticed a subtle shift in the way her classmates looked at her. The usual whispers seemed to have quieted, replaced by curious and sometimes even admiring glances. The news of her impromptu performance in Mr. Thompson's music class had spread like wildfire through the school's intricate network of gossip and social media. It had become the unexpected sensation of the week, a topic of hushed conversations in the library and excited chatter in the cafeteria. Later that morning, a summons arrived. Ava was requested to report to the headmaster's office. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. She couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, despite the positive reactions from her peers, she might still face repercussions for challenging Mr. Thompson's authority. As she stood outside the imposing oak door with the brass nameplate that read, "Mr. Abernathy, Headmaster," she took a deep breath and tried to compose herself. Mr. Abernathy, a man known for his reserved demeanor and unwavering adherence to the school's traditions, greeted Ava with a surprisingly warm smile. He gestured for her to sit down in one of the plush leather chairs that faced his large mahogany desk. The office was filled with the scent of old books and polished wood, a testament to the school's long history. "Ms. Carter," Mr. Abernathy began, his voice calm and measured, "I have heard about your performance in Mr. Thompson's class yesterday, and I must say I am impressed." He leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. "Mr. Thompson, while perhaps unconventional in his methods, has informed me of your exceptional talent at the piano." Ava's eyebrows rose slightly in surprise. She had expected a reprimand, not praise, especially coming from the headmaster. "Thank you, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Mr. Abernathy continued, "In fact, Miss Carter, your performance has inspired an idea. We have our prestigious annual recital coming up next month, a highlight of the school year. The lead performer is usually selected from our most accomplished music students, often those who have been with us for many years." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "This year, Ms. Carter, I would like to offer that honor to you." Ava was speechless. The lead in the recital was a highly coveted position, typically reserved for students from the school's most elite backgrounds, those who had been groomed for such opportunities since they were children. The fact that she, a scholarship student who had often felt invisible, was being offered this honor was nothing short of astonishing. "Sir, I don't know what to say," Ava stammered, her voice filled with emotion. "Your talent speaks for itself, Miss Carter," Mr. Abernathy said with a reassuring smile. "This is an opportunity for you to shine, to showcase your remarkable abilities to the entire school community. I believe you will do Westwood proud." As Ava exited the headmaster's office, her mind reeling from the unexpected turn of events, she saw Mr. Thompson standing in the hallway, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He avoided her gaze, his expression unreadable. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. He had lost control of the narrative. The story was no longer about his perceived superiority and Ava's supposed inadequacy. It was now a story of her triumph, a testament to the undeniable power of her talent. No longer was she the girl he could ignore or mock. She was the lead performer in the school's most prestigious recital. That night, Ava sat at her grandmother's old piano at home, the familiar scent of aged wood filling her nostrils. Her fingers danced across the worn keys, playing a soft, reflective melody. Her heart was full, not just of pride, but of a profound sense of accomplishment. She had done more than just prove herself to Mr. Thompson and her classmates. She had rewritten the expectations that had been placed upon her, shattering the preconceived notions that had held her back for so long. The scholarship had opened the door to Westwood, but it was her talent, her passion, and her unwavering spirit that had allowed her to truly belong. The whispers might not disappear entirely, but now they would carry a different tune, a melody of respect and recognition for the girl who had silenced her doubters with the power of her music. Mr. Thompson's reign of subtle prejudice had been challenged, and in the quiet sanctuary of her home, Ava knew that things at Westwood would never be quite the same again. Talent knows no race, no social standing, no predetermined path. It is a force that transcends superficial barriers and speaks a universal language of beauty and emotion. When given the chance, when nurtured and allowed to flourish, true brilliance will always shine through, illuminating even the darkest corners of prejudice. As the great Maya Angelou once said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." Ava's story is a powerful reminder that our abilities are not defined by the limitations others try to impose on us, but by the boundless potential that lies within. It is a testament to the importance of perseverance, the courage to stand up for oneself, and the transformative power of believing in one's own worth, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. Thank you for joining us on Ava's inspiring journey. We hope her story has resonated with you and reminded you of the importance of recognizing and celebrating talent in all its forms. If you enjoyed this narrative and are looking for more stories that explore themes of resilience, overcoming adversity, and the triumph of the human spirit, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Your support allows us to continue sharing these meaningful stories. Now, we invite you to click on the next video, where you will discover another compelling tale that is sure to leave you feeling inspired and uplifted.